This episode of Capes and Lunatics is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. Get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
It's Chaz, and we really want to be your friends. We hope our good times never end. It's Mozz, it's Chaz, and we really want to be your friends. Hey, cats and kittens. Welcome to the AKA JonesCast. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me, as always, is my skinny, rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz, welcome back to another great episode. One of the few episodes running down to the end of the AKA Jones cast. Now, for those wondering, we are not going away when this is done. We have been asked by the great Phil Perch to sort of consolidate into a single reviewing podcast. We have all of Disney Plus available to us. Several Amazon Prime shows that if we're interested in we can do. But he wants us to have an overarching name for the show that me and Mozz will be reviewing and digesting for you, our delightful viewers. So, watch for that in the near future. Tonight's episode, Season 3, Episode 11, a.k.a. Hellcat. Trish revisits her troubled childhood with Dorothy while plotting to stop Salinger and stamp out evil across the city. Director tonight is Jennifer Getzinger. Of course, Brian Michael Bendis and Jane Epson. Well, Brian Michael Bendis gets our Marvels created by, along with Michael Gaydos. The written by this episode is Jane Epinson. And then Jesse Harris is our staff writer this week. Hardest working person in the show business. Jay Holtham and Jamie King, both working as story editors. And of course, Melissa Rosenberg gets our created by credit because she started this all off wonderfully. Okay, so this is there's a lot of time jumping throughout the
Yeah, and it's sort of giving sort of the other side to the coin of the last episode or two.
And also we're jumping back in time to look at where Patsy...
Right.
And, it is for a rough...
Right, but I don't know, a certain part of me, identified a lot more with Patsy's mom in those scenes from back in the day. She taught her some very, very valuable lessons. She had, a very rough around the edges way of going about it, but she taught her how to be who she was, a survivor and as resourceful as she is. And she taught her very, very important lessons about human nature and how survival works. So I thought I didn't feel that much for that character before, but in these moments you really got a sense for what she gave.
Well, what it is all about the forced perspective. And prior to this we saw Dorothy saw her smacking Patsy around. We saw her doing this and that and being very manipulative and very controlling. But here we see sort of the origins of the character and this need for Patsy to be something more for them. And now it's an interesting question when you break it down in the whole of it. Is Patsy a good actor, or was she placed in a hit show at a time? It's your basic BoJack Horseman question. Was he ever really good, or was he just in the right place at the right time and pushed in the right direction?
Well, I mean I think the fallacy there is that it has to be one or the other. I think, and it doesn't have to be, a little bit of either each. I think it has to be all of both in order to get to the position where she was at. So luckily they were, blessed with a kid who had some talent enough to be good. And then on top of that, her mother was really good at the other side of the business, the adult side of the business, to get her in those positions, to be groomed, to be who she is today, to be Patsy Walker now.
But of course, we shouldn't forget last season too quickly, where it was revealed that, the pedophile
Mm,
producer
mm.
that had a date with Patsy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of darkness in Hollywood, really,
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, but but for what it's worth, that is the story. That is,
Yeah,
and that is in many ways from what we see in these episodes, Patsy's story,
yeah.
which is that there is darkness.
Yeah, but it's like the other thing that occurred to me at that point was everybody has darkness. Whether it be the superheroes with what they went through, whether it be the people that they're saving and the lives of all those people in those buildings and all the bad stuff that's happening. Everybody has darkness, and I think you just got to find a way to work through yours and still be a contributing member of society.
Well, yeah.
It's like her story isn't terribly unique, don't you think?
No, well, no, it's not unique, but it is her story. And for what it's worth, every person's story, like you said, there's the darkness in it, and then there's the redemption. There was an interesting story in Daredevil not too
Hmm.
long ago that Phil was telling me about, which was that that the guy that Daredevil saves, the old blind man he pushes out of the way when he
Hmm.
gets hit by the truck with the nuclear waste, was apparently a drunken, abusive monster,
Hmm.
and his daughter said, "Why did you save him? He should have died then, and my life would have been so much better." Because
Yeah,
because
well,
as
it's
a
like that's not his job.
well, but the thing is that as a hero, he runs in to save and
Yeah,
never thinks about what and this is what's interesting is we often look at that flip side of that argument. We often look at hey, the Punisher is killing these criminals, but these criminals have lives.
right.
We very rarely look at, oh, hey, Daredevil saved this guy,
Yeah,
but he really wasn't a guy worth saving. Although arguably that is essentially the story that we're going to be getting in this, because as Patsy's going a bit off the,
a little bit.
we are going to have Jessica have to sort of save Patsy from herself.
Mm,
But before we get there, we're going through the origins of Patsy and all the things that her mom did and Patsy did. And Patsy, for what it's worth, she's passive in much of it, but she learns quick.
right.
She's a quick learner and she understands, okay, this is where I make my end. This is where I say the cute line. And one of my favorite scenes in this is Dorothy talking to Patsy, and Patsy, they're running the lines and they say, what are you bitter about? You're only 10. And she says, and I'll never see 9 again. And the mom and Dorothy says, no, throw it away. Because as she says, every kid is doing a fake spoon.
Yeah,
You've got to
ignore the
make.
parentheticals. I love that part too. As an actor, I love that part.
Oh yeah,
Find something else, That was great.
it's a suggestion. It's not a requirement.
Yeah.
Because you gotta know when you need to cut your hair. You know, you gotta know when. No matter what the script says, you've got to make this character your own to make it
Right,
work.
and not just that, from the perspective of trying to find an original moment in an honest way to sort of make it appear as though you're having that thought or that emotion or those words are occurring to you for the first time ever. In an effort to do that, you have to try to find it every single time. But if you're already playing to an emotion that's on the page, it's hard to find it because it doesn't force you to do the work to get to that emotion. But if you don't know what emotion you're going to play, you just try to live in the moment and find it. It can seem much more real, and I think that can be a better way to approach the scene, or at least a better way to find something new in the scene.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, that is, I think, really some of the best aspects of being an actor is just finding that way to, you know, tell the story in a real way, and
Yeah.
you tell the story in a real way by making it as real as you possibly can.
And that's the sort of thing that, you see that scene and you appreciate how, knowledgeable and how astute Dorothy really is, and what a valuable presence she was for Patsy. Not to discount all the negatives that came with it, but there is something to take pride in, I think, also.
Well, exactly, and I do think that it really definitely gives us this, and we do get our funeral scenes where we realize how much of a life Dorothy had after after Patsy essentially emancipated herself. And it's a nice redemptive arc, honestly. But it is in its own way a little bit, sad when I think one of the things that feeds into Patsy's anger here is this sudden realization that her mom actually did get better, and she never gave her the chance to show her that. And
And maybe looking back at those experiences, she's even just like I am when watching those scenes, finding some sympathy for Dorothy, and beyond that, maybe finding something to like. So in this moment, maybe she's like, "Oh, I could have had these lessons much sooner, or I could have recognized the beautiful parts of those same memories sooner, so that I could have done something about it."
although, as the saying goes, there's no one easier to love than a
Oh, yeah, yeah.
when the evil that men do is incurred with their bones, it is very easy to find the positives in the stories that we could have told, and but at the same time, because because this death is not a planned death, you know this is not a death that comes at the end of illness. This is not a death that comes after a lifetime of sickness and self abuse. This is a taking of a life, and in that taking of that life, it robs not only the character of their life, but it robs the characters around them of the chance to learn what has happened.
Or even to make their peace with them so they can grow as people and grow beyond whatever is holding them back that has to do with this relationship.
Exactly, exactly, and I think that is where a lot of Patsy's rage is coming from here.
I totally see that.
Patsy is full of the of what she's full of, and
And self-loathing, most of all.
yeah.
And not being capable of seeing that it is self-loathing.
Although it's interesting because so here's this thing. I am a big believer that Gelden is very much meant to be a very left-handed take on Damien Hellstrom, who, of course, for those who don't know, is the son of Satan. Also has a twin sister, um, you know, and who winds up, marrying Patsy Walker in the comics, drives her mad, yada yada yada.
Hmm.
But when he says when they kill the cop that for the first moment, Eric says,
Yeah.
the world's better, and I'd never, and which is an interesting aspect of it. It's like he never, because of course all he knew was that when he got his father in trouble, he caused more problems. That when he tried to save someone, it didn't limit the amount of suffering and evil in the world. It just actually increased it. And in this situation, though, when you kill the guy, when you send him to the all welcoming Satan for their just and right punishments, it makes the world feel better and makes Eric feel better. And I think that is a telling aspect of it about how this cloud lifts for Eric, and how it makes him want to look for more, you know, to try and be that hero, that punishing hero.
Right. And the fact that he doesn't succumb to that it wasn't even a significant enough pull for him to try to want to be the kind of person that kills more people to feel better, says a lot about who he is as a person.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, and I think that is true. Although at the same time, he still connects Patsy with with their next victim.
Right, but that was sort of, in a way to save Jessica. It wasn't something he wanted to do. He was almost coerced and manipulated into doing it by Patsy.
Yeah, and to be fair, obviously that is a quality of it that that as Eric is dealing with this, yes, he does feel better because evil has been ended, but he also knows that if you end evil too much, you become the evil.
Right.
It's like the headaches he gets from people, and
Yeah,
how
yeah,
Jessica, is the opposite of a headache for him. Which I think is really the most beautiful aspect of it.
yeah.
That those two is, you know, and it's sad
Definitely
to
is a
see.
begrudging hero.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is. It's just there's
I
a
guess that's
lot.
the only way to do it honestly,
Yeah.
is to do it begrudgingly.
Well, to be fair, that's the truth of it is that when you're trying to do good, like you know, I'm a big fan of The Good Fight, which is a really good series, and they talk about the point system, but that if you know about the point system, you just become that's what they call it, but they said basically a positivity pump, where it's like you're so obsessed with getting the points that you just
Mm.
damage yourself to push out more good in the world, even though it's actually causing you distress. And I think that in that same kind of sense, there's this idea that you can try to do good in the world, but if your doing good winds up stemming from an evil motivation, then you just wind up, actually doing evil even when you're killing. And I think, when you tie that back to something like the last season of Punisher and, the kids he kills
Hmm.
at the last scene, and that's the thing, because, when we actually talk about the cop they kill in this, they make the point that, he killed these kids. Yeah, they were drug dealers, but they were, they were kids, They were
Yeah.
stupid kids in bad situations, and he just killed them because he could. And when the Punisher does, and this is why I've always said that last scene of the Punisher just really kills me.
Does a disservice to the entire point of the character.
Well, or does it just highlight it? It's sort of like the Joker, you know. And there's this urge to look for that deeper meaning in the Joker beyond just the idea that he's a sociopathic killer who likes to kill people. And as I always say, the moment the Joker isn't a redeemable hero is when he chases the fat guy. When when he's in the subway and he shoots the fat guy in the leg and the fat guy runs, and then he chases the fat guy down to shoot him and make sure he's dead. Because that's when he makes that turn. It's not about defense. It's not about rising up against those with power above us. It is about pure and just dedicated love of violence. And I think that at the end of the day, a guy like the Punisher and maybe even Hellcat, there is this love of violence. There is this desire.
What's interesting about the Joker is that it's like there's a point where someone breaks and they're no longer human. So it's like that there's something to that too, that it's not just that it's pure evil. Obviously it is, but there's also a shift that happens, that you're no longer sort of right, you're broken. Like the system is broken, or the robot has faulty programming, it's going to go around killing all humans. that there's something to that too. It was like he was already sort of damaged by his childhood, and then wasn't able to handle the world, and the world just broke him, and he just So yeah, I think the point is that it's also that I think the point I'm trying to make is that he's also one of us, a reflection of us.
Oh yeah, well, it's as you say, there, but for the grace of God go I. I mean but that I think is one of the deepest lessons that is the hardest to learn in life. Is that when you say there, but for the grace of God go I, it doesn't just extend to the man who is starving on the street. I mean, you can argue it extends to Donald Trump Jr.
Right, right.
And that if I had been raised like that poor miserable fellow Donald Trump Jr., I might be just as much of a person that he is. And just to get political here for a minute, I mean, one of I always go back to this. There is this great line in The Great Gatsby when the writer, and I'm blanking on his name, but I'm blanking on everyone's name. He goes back to Minnesota. And it's like in the middle. He goes back home, and he's remembering a time when he came back home from school, and he remembers this thing his father told him as he's about to go out into the world. And he says, just remember, just understand, not everyone has had all the advantages you had. Now, as a middle class kid, the obvious implication is that you're going to meet guys who struggled in their lives, who have been poor, and they didn't have the advantage of wealth and privilege you had. But I think there's also a deeper aspect of that, is that you're going to meet people who have been raised with all the wealth and all the privilege, and you know what? They never had a parent actually care for them in the way that you did. That is a privilege that you got that not everybody gets. And that I think is one of the most telling aspects of that evolution.
The struggle is an asset.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, it can be if you.
That is an advantage. Right. And because it's like, it's like you've heard that thing where, if you find a butterfly cocoon and the butterfly is having trouble breaking out of the cocoon, it's taking too long. So somebody will go over there and help, and it'll pry open the cocoon and let the butterfly come out. Now, that's a terrible thing that you can do for the butterfly, because in those moments where it's breaking through and forcing its muscles to work, or whatever they have instead of muscles, I don't know if they have muscles or whatever, but it forces them to build the strength to be able to fly. But if you prevent that from happening by helping them get out, all of a sudden the butterfly never develops that strength in its wings, and it can't fly, and it dies of starvation, or gets eaten by a bird or whatever. So in that respect, a struggle is also something that's a very, very valuable thing, because people who grow up in really affluent situations sometimes don't know what to do, or have the energy, or understand the reason why you should try hard. So they lack that same sort of will in a lot of times. And I guess what I'm saying is that can happen to people.
For every answer, there's another answer, and there's another possibility. And when you do, you know, there is this idea that one could put out there, which is that yes, you save the butterfly the pain of dying in its cocoon, only to have it
No, but
die. No,
it
no, no,
wouldn't
no, no,
die, though.
no.
It would eventually break out. No, but it wouldn't die, though. It would eventually break out.
I mean, see, that's the assumption, is that if we just let it struggle. I mean, this is my dad, who grew up in Nazi Germany, was very much a big believer in the idea of the survival of the fittest and whatnot. Um, and used to want to have the kids go out in the morning and do jumping jacks in the front yard in the cold, because that's what he did as a kid. And my mother, who was a very different kind of person in her own way, said, survival of the fittest is a great idea until your kid's not the fittest. Um, and when he realized that, oh man, I could actually make my kids sick doing this, maybe I shouldn't have them do that. It did change a lot of things, in the way you approach things. And when you look at that idea of, I'm going to take a life, I'm going to do this thing because it's going to make the world better, or I'm going to help this person in this way, you have to ask what are the
Mm.
deeper questions. And so if this, see, you say the butterfly would have gotten free eventually. Well, that's an assumption.
No, but I'm just saying, generally, that's what happens. And if you what? No, but I'm just saying, and generally, that's what happens. And if you, what my point is, if you break it out early, if you let it run its normal course, under normal course, 99% of the time, that's how they're born. But I'm saying, if you do it early, it prevents it. So, like the struggle sometimes is important into building you who you're going to be. And sometimes, if you grow up without having to struggle, you don't develop those social skills that are important to be able to survive a bully, to be able to survive confrontation, to be able to survive competition. You know?
Maybe the deeper story is like,
Right.
don't be messing with the nature. Nature knows what it's doing, and that's a fair
Exactly.
cop. But it's, what it is that it's so easy then to take that argument
Exactly.
and to place it on a human scale, which it has no business being put on. And that I think is the conundrum of the hero, is that the hero has to help people. And you can say you're only making them weaker by helping, and the truth is that may be true. But even if I save a man's life and give him, so for example, when you go back to that Daredevil story where he saves man's life, and he was a drunk and an abuser,
Mm.
and yeah, yeah, that drunk abuser went on to cause more damage. And if he had just let him die, then the world might have been better. Just like Eric says.
So my philosophy on that is, that's not his job as a superhero. He doesn't have time to be focusing on, who he should be saving or who deserves saving or not. His job is just to go out there. If somebody's in trouble, go save them, right? It's society's job to be nice to everybody so that everybody's nice to each other. But if we've created this terrible person, he's a symptom of the ills of society. And the superhero's job is to deal with the surface stuff. If somebody needs saving from immediate danger, that's one thing. But if we as a society have allowed so many of us to get so messed up that they lash out at us, that's like somebody eating donuts and eating donuts and eating donuts, and then they get, diabetes or something, and they're like, oh no, there's bad things inside me, let's get rid of these bad things. But hey, we put them there. We created this situation that allowed those to happen. So as a superhero's job, he's just surface saving people that need saving. I don't think that onus needs to be on him, or he needs to take responsibility or feel bad about it. He saved someone, move on, save the next person. You did your job, whether or not that person was worth saving or not. I don't think that's his responsibility to figure out. No?
Well, no, I agree. And what I will say deeper to that is, when you save an irredeemable man's life, or an irredeemable woman's life, when you save Patsy Walker's life, or not Patsy, Dorothy Walker's life, you give her the chance to find a better way. You give her the chance to be a better person. And I always think about, I always say, I never wish ill upon my enemies. That when a man harms me, I only wish that they should know happiness. Because if a man knows true happiness, he will recognize the failures in his life and regret, and
Mm.
that regret is far more great a punishment. Uh,
Well, not just that, but that's probably the only path to true regret.
well, exactly. Well, that's the thing. Is like, if you are happy, you can start to see how you've made others unhappy.
Right, right. You can't expect him to have regret unless he finds happiness first. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because if all a man knows is pain, then he's just going to blame all of his anger on all the pain he knows. But if he should ever find true happiness, suddenly he's going to start to think, well, maybe I was wrong when I gave evil to others. And that, I think, is the greatest revenge you could have.
And at that point, it's not even about revenge. It's about healing for both people.
It should always be about healing.
Uh,
We are broken. We are broken beasts looking to find a way to be better.
that's a really powerful thought, man.
Yeah, well, because, I mean, one thing I will give for Catholicism, it has a lot of messed up ideas and thoughts, but one thing we all say is that you're not better than anybody else. You too are a sinner, and the minute you start thinking you're holier than thou, then you're just a Pharisee. You're just someone who says, well, I'm better than you and I can judge you. It's like, no, you can't. And the fact of the matter is that we've all dealt with a lot of stuff. Now, if someone hurts you, you have every right to be angry at a person who hurts you. But you don't have the right to say, my anger justifies more hurt for you. Because I don't know how much you had before you hurt. If you think about it, it's like, I don't know the hurt you knew before I got here. And to tie it back to the show we're watching, Patsy doesn't know the hurt Dorothy knew
Right.
beforehand. There was this, I was watching, remember Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher years and years ago. And it was, what's her name? The first black Miss America and Florence Henderson. And they were having a little discussion. And Florence Henderson was kind of shocked when, you know, that first, and I'm guessing that's who it was, but it was definitely an African American woman, and she was definitely a noted celebrity. But she made the point that she had made a point to never compromise who she was, sexually, etc., to advance her career. And Florence Henderson was just kind of like shocked that that was the life she got to live, suggesting that Florence Henderson has made some deals with the devil over her.
Well, that she never had the luxury not to.
Exactly. And that's the idea. Is like, it's very easy to sit there in righteous judgment of another. And I remember that Florence Henderson looked at her and said, well, then you're very lucky then. And it really brought home years before Me Too, because this was back in the 90s. This idea that it's like, man, you have no idea how lucky you are that you got to have a career without, without a Weinstein in your closet. And that is, I think, the truth of it. It's like, it's very easy to judge Dorothy Walker because we only knew what she did to Patsy. We don't know what was done to Dorothy before that. So, and then Patsy kills a guy. Kills two guys. And wackiness will ensue in the next episode. Oh, any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozz?
No, I think we got to the meat of most of it.
Yeah, it's a great episode. This is such a great series. I'm so sad to be seeing it going. And we got two more episodes. Next episode is the penultimate episode. Take a drink.
Mm.
And then we'll get to the final episode. In the meantime, Mozz, where can people find you if they'd like to talk to you about penultimate episodes and all the things that make them penultimate?
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And of course, if you'd like to write to me in that old-fashioned email way that we our mothers and fathers once did, please do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters as I live tweet Watchmen on HBO. Yes, this is a really good show. You've got to watch it, kid.
Oh, I'm dying to see the first episode. I haven't yet, but sorry, sir. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. Please do. I mean, honestly, if you've read the comic, and I'll tell you, this is This is a sequel to the comics, not necessarily to the movie. Although we may see some crossover between it. It might be a mixed universe. But I am so excited and so happy about what this universe is building. It's so good. So I'm live tweeting that. I live tweeted Batwoman, which was okay. We'll see how often I do that. But it is on just before Watchmen, so if I'm already there. And of course, eventually we'll do Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again, and Cloak and Dagger, and all those other great shows. So follow me on the Twitters at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEssers. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Ding!
There you go. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this episode 11 of the AKA JonesCast Season 3. Please join us again next week because you know me and Mozz, we just really want to be your friend. Good night.